I answered my son Daniel's phone while he was feeding our dog in the backyard. A woman said, "So, when are you going to tell her about us?" Daniel had dropped his phone on the kitchen table. It vibrated twice before I reached for it. Unknown caller. I answered and explained it was Daniel's mother. A woman with a steady voice asked if he had finally ended things at home. When I asked who she was, she said her name was Elise. Then she repeated the question. I told her I would have Daniel call back, then ended the call. When he came inside with a dog at his heels, he asked if his phone rang. I told him it was spam. Daniel was 20 and in his second year of engineering school. He had never mentioned anyone named Elise. That evening, while his phone charged on the counter, a message preview flashed across the screen. "We need to settle things." My stomach tightened. 2 days later, I drove to campus to meet him for an early dinner. He looked worn out, but cheerful. We talked about lab work and dorm life. When I asked about his girlfriend Megan, he said they had taken a break. He said he was focusing on school for now. I asked if he had met anyone new. He mentioned a friend named Carter from physics. No mention of Elise. While walking back to my car, I saw Daniel behind the science building speaking with a woman I didn't know. She handed him a thin envelope. He tucked it into his backpack quickly and walked the other way. A notice? A bill? Something else? I didn't call out. I kept walking. That weekend, I invited him for groceries. While we compared cereal brands, I asked if he knew someone named Elise. He thought for a moment and said an Elise helped with tutoring sessions. He asked why I wanted to know. I said I must have misheard a name. As we passed the pet aisle, he stopped to look at a display of collars and tiny engraved tags. "Cute," he said softly. He kept staring for a moment, then moved on. I tried to brush off my doubts. They did not leave. The next Thursday, I stopped by his dorm. His roommate, Jonah, let me in. While waiting, I noticed an odd stack of folded papers on the desk. Sharp, tidy corners. They looked like architectural models. Tiny roofs, small beams made from cardstock. Jonah said they were Daniel's, part of some side project he was doing for extra credit. A sketchbook lay half open beside them. I glanced down. Floor plans. Notes in bold pencil. A name written at the top of a page. Project Shelter. Before I could turn another page, Daniel walked in and froze. "Mom, what are you doing here?" At the diner near campus, I asked if everything was all right. He said he was just overwhelmed by midterms and volunteer work. Volunteer work? I asked. He said he had joined a community program that built temporary shelters for families in crisis. He checked his phone often. His leg bounced under the table. When his phone buzzed again, he excused himself and stepped outside. I held myself back from reaching for his phone on the table. Later, while walking to the car, I noticed a woman near the bus stop watching us. Daniel stiffened when he saw her. He said her name was Elise, a coordinator from the shelter project. He described her as strict and always questioning his work. Questioning how? I asked. Deadlines, supplies, design decisions, everything, he said. The following week, he invited me to an open house for the shelter program. Families, students, and volunteers filled the hall. Before the tour started, a woman approached me. She introduced herself as Elise. When I asked how she knew my name, she said Daniel had mentioned I might come. She asked if we could talk for a moment. In a quiet corner, she asked if I was the person who answered his phone earlier that month. When I said yes, she sighed in relief. She said she worried she had been too abrupt. She explained she had been pushing Daniel to finalize his design for a small modular shelter they were presenting. She pulled a photo from her binder. It was one of the paper models from his dorm desk. "This is our project," she said. "A prototype for an emergency shelter." She said Daniel had taken on most of the work, and she was worried he would not list her contribution. A wave of relief washed over me. After the presentation, I congratulated Daniel and mentioned the shelter model Elise had shown me. He admitted he had redone most of their design because he and Elise disagreed on the layout. When I suggested giving her some credit since she seemed invested, he agreed with a tired smile. For the first time in weeks, I drove home without a knot in my chest.